So here, thanks for reconnecting.
Thank you, Luc.
We got a follow-up question related to the PED guidelines, which I wanted to discuss with you in this video. The question is, so what are the PED guidelines exactly, and who made them? Let me just share my screen here. Yeah. So I've opened the PED guidelines, which are available for download for free. I mean, they're downloadable in lesson 1.5 of the course.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a very useful document, of course. Could we maybe elaborate a little bit on what are they and how did they come into existence? You know, who made these?
Yeah.
Yeah, can I ask questions to these people? Like, can you elaborate a little bit on this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, the guidelines are sort of interpretations of the text of the PED, because you know that the PED is legislation. It's a directive,
Yeah.
so it's always difficult to understand the text of a directive.
Right. Yeah.
And,
It's very legal language. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have, for instance, a project under the PED, the text of the PED is leading. So you have to fulfill the requirements of the directive, of course. But if you don't quite understand what some text in the PED means, then there is a possibility to ask questions. And as a manufacturer, you can ask questions to the working group on pressure equipment, VGP.
Right.
That is an organization in Brussels for asking questions about the pressure equipment directive.
All right.
And this is done because all notified bodies, for instance, in the European community, the EU, have to assess designs on the same way, so in the same way, so that there will be no differences between separate notified bodies.
Yeah.
Now, in this working group on pressure, there are some representatives from the European Commission, also people from the Notified Body Forum. So also a lot of questions come from users of the PED.
Right.
And as a manufacturer, you can also ask questions to your notified body, and that they'll take care that the question you have on this pressure equipment directive goes to the working group on pressure.
Okay. Can you ask questions directly?
It's also possible to send an email to this working group on pressure and ask a new question, or maybe you have a comment on an existing guideline. That's possible. Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. And so, if I understand correctly, the people in this working group are engineers, are people with a technical background.
Some have a technical background because also people from CEN, that is the committee that makes the EN norms, for instance. They have a technical background, but also people from the European Commission, representatives of the notified bodies. So a lot of people from different origin are a member of this working group.
Yeah. And do the guidelines overrule the PED?
No. That's not possible because the text of the PED is legislation, so it's a directive, and you have to fulfill the essential safety requirements, for instance, that are part of the Annex 1 of the Pressure Equipment Directive.
Yeah.
So these these guidelines can be seen as what they call in ESME interpretations. So, but these interpretations or guidelines are not legally binding. So, if you have, for instance, a guideline, and you as a manufacturer you make a design, you're free to have another opinion. Of course, you have to defend that opinion, and but it's always possible to come with another solution to a problem.
All right, but that's an interesting point. So
Yeah.
if you so the PED document itself is ruling, and these guidelines are, if I understand correctly, like explanatory and like additional, like how to interpret the PED. But if you know you're a specialist and you disagree with the explanation that is given in the guideline, you can actually you know interpret the PED in a different direction as long as you can defend your position.
Yeah, you have to explain it to the notified body, and they'll have to accept it, of course.
Exactly.
That's quite interesting. Yeah.
Wow, have you ever encountered a situation like that?
Yeah. In the beginning of the PED, for instance, we had some discussions about an ESME project, because also the ESME code is allowed to use under the Pressure Equipment Directive.
Right.
But of course, you have to look at what the ESME says. You have to fulfill the requirements of the ESME for 100%. And then you have to look at the PD if there are some other requirements that you have to fulfill. And one of the things that I remember is that the Nobel was asking us for the minimum design metal temperature, saying that they were convinced that we were going to test all the materials for brittle fracture.
Right.
And then I said,
so cold temperatures.
Yeah, cold temperatures. Yeah, if you have a minimum design metal temperatures of minus 20 degrees, for instance, then you have to prove that the materials have a test value of 27 joule for impact testing. And because ESME, for instance, ESME 1 does not say anything about impact testing, the notified body was convinced that we are going to impact test all the materials, which we did.
Which is a lot of work. Yeah.
A lot of work, and it's a lot of money, of course.
So, and a lengthy process, I can imagine.
Yeah. So we suggested in that case that we would follow the ESME 8 Division 1 requirements, because there is a method saying that you don't have to impact test all the materials. For instance, pipes that are very thin, you don't have to test it all. You can use them for cold temperatures. And sometimes you have very thick components like a steam drum. And also in the case of UCS 66, you have to impact test that material. But only a few tests are enough to say that you fulfill the requirements of UCS 66. There was only one problem, that the ESME code requires 20 joule at 20 degrees Celsius, or the minimum design metal temperature, which can be lower. So you have to upgrade the tests, or you have to upgrade the results to 27 joule, which is about 7 degrees Celsius. So.
All right. So in that instance, you disagreed with the Nobel, and you used this like you recalculate. You used this UCS 66, I believe you said, to reduce the amount of impact tests that had to be done.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
All right. And Was that ever submitted to the guidelines?
I'm not sure about that. No, I don't think so. No.
All right, all right. Just a follow-up question, Geert. So how long does it typically take if you submit a question or the NOBO submits a question that you asked,
Yeah.
to the working group that makes the PED guidelines? I mean, it probably takes a while, right?
Yeah, it takes a while because they are not sitting together. They don't have meetings every day, so
Yeah,
from time to time they'll come together. But anyway, you can ask that question, but of course you have the solution in your head, so you can. In that case, you can convince your notified body that you have the correct solution for the question, and they can accept it. Nevertheless, they will bring it to the forum in Brussels
yeah,
if they can make a guideline of it. So
yeah,
yeah,
yeah. So typically the guidelines are not used in like in the timeline of a certain project, like, hey, we run into an issue, let's ask
yeah,
it as a guideline
yeah,
and hope to get the answer
yeah,
in the guidelines during the time duration of the
yeah,
project.
yeah,
But the guideline just grow over time, and they help people,
yeah.
to be able to read them during the
Yeah,
project.
and of course, it's a public domain. These
Yeah.
guidelines, you can find them on the internet. And what can be important is that for if you have a project as a manufacturer and you have a question, the first thing you do, of course, is looking at if this question has been asked before. So
Mhm.
um, and in that case, you can use the solution that is in the guidelines.
Exactly. All
Yeah.
right.